Today's lesson is Rounding Whole Numbers, Lesson 1. Today you will round numbers to the nearest tens and nearest hundreds. You will need a pencil and a piece of paper for this lesson, so please pause the lesson and go get your supplies and then come back and continue play. What does it mean to round a number? Well, let's take a look at this as an example. Let's say you're going to the store and you want to purchase Finding Nemo. And you ask your, let's say, mom, if you can buy it. And she might say, well, how much is it? Or she might say, well, about how much is it? When you use the words about, that means it's not an exact price. In this case, the DVD is on sale for exactly $17. But if you're asked about how much is it, that's going to be a different answer. Let's take a look. I put 17 in between the numbers 10 and 20. So if you're counting from 10 to 20, if I asked you to choose the number 20 or the number 10, which number is 17 closest to? If you said 20, you are correct. So the answer to the question, about how much is it, if we're talking in money, the nearest 10 is going to be 20, because this is a group of 10. When we count, let's go to the next slide. When we count by tens, we go 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. Many times you're asked to round to the nearest 10. Let's take a look now. 17 is only 1, 2, 3 away from 20, and yet, let me grab a pen. It is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 away from the number 10. And it's only 3 away from the 20. So if we had to say about how much is it, we would say that it is about $20. Well, let's say that the DVD is on sale for $12. And you again are asked about how much is it. So if we take a look at the same number line, here's our 10 and here's our 20, and where we're rounding money and we say about how much is it, if there's only two digits, there's the ones and the tens, generally you're going to round to the tens, to the nearest tens. So which one is it nearer? Is it nearest 10, which is right here, or is it nearest 20? If you said that 12 is closer or nearer to 10, you are correct. It's only 2 away, and yet it's 8 away from 20. Here's some rules to follow when you're rounding. Let me introduce you to some dogs. We've got Wimpy. Sorry, no offense to the Chihuahuas. If you are a 0, a 1, a 2, a 3, or a 4, you're going to be Wimpy, and you're just going to stay put. If you're bossy, you're going to be 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9. And if you're bossy, you're telling the numbers to move. If you can remember this, it will help you know how to round numbers. So let's take a look at this. When you round a number, it means you are stating the nearest tens or hundreds that the number is closest to. Remember these rules. Underline the place that you are to be rounding to in both the number and the word. So let's take a look at this example. Round to the nearest tens. I'm going to underline the word tens so I don't forget where I need to round. And then I come to the number and I find the tens. Here's the ones, the tens, and the hundreds. I'm going to underline the tens place. So that's step number 1. Step number 2. Look at the number to the immediate right. Ask yourself, is it Wimpy or bossy? Well, we have the tens underlined, and we're going to go to the immediate right. That was our direction. It's a 5. Is a 5 bossy or is it Wimpy? If you said bossy, you are correct. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 is bossy. Okay, now let's look at the next step. If it is bossy, change the underlined number, in this case the 3, up 1, and everything after that place will change to a 0. So the underlined number, if the number to the right of it is bossy, it's going to boss this guy to move. So it's going to go up to a 4. Oops, that doesn't look like a 4. And everything behind it turns to a 0. And then you retain the numbers in front, so you move that number up top. Really what this is meaning here is, does 835 fall in between? Now remember, we're looking at tens. So 835 is in between 830, because 30 is tens, and the next tens over would be 840. If we look on a continuum here, 835 is right in the middle. And in this case, 5 was decided to be a bossy number, and so it forces that number to go up to the next tens, which is 840. If the number to the right of the underlined number is wimpy, the underlined number stays put, and everything after that place will change to a 0. See, wimpy? He's scared, so he says, I think I'll just stay put. So we go to the underlined place. In this case, it's still the tens. Look at the neighbor to the right, and that's the ones column. If it's wimpy, in this case it is, it's a 2. 2 is wimpy, it's a small number. This 3 stays, and everything behind it turns to a 0. So if you rewrite this number, it would be 830. So what this means on a number line is this number, 832, is in between the tens, 830, and the next 10 up, we're going to keep the 800, the next 10 up is 840. So if we look on a number line, and that's where these are, 830, see, in the middle would be 35, so let's go down here. 832 is about right here. It's closer to 830 than it is to 840. That's why we changed the number to the right to a 0, because it was asked to be the nearest tens. 30 is the tens, and in this case 40 is the tens. The nearest tens are the 30s, so 830. Okay, now I want you to do these on your own. So we're going to read this together, and then you need to pause the video, and then when you're done writing, then I want you to go turn the video back on, and you can check your work. I want you to write the number 37 down, and then take a look. We are going to round the following to the nearest tens. Okay, go ahead and pause the video. Okay, you should have remembered the nearest tens. That needs to be underlined, and then go to the number and underline the tens. The second rule was look to the neighbor. It's a 7. Is it bossy or wimpy? If you said it's bossy, you are correct. Step 3 was, if it's bossy, it's going to boss this number around. So this 3 is going to change to a 4, and everything behind it changes to 0. This means 37, nearest tens, is in between the number 30 and 40, but because of the work we just did, we said it's closer to 40. So in the middle would be about 35, 37, about right here. And you can see that 37 is closer to 40 than it is to 30. Okay, here's another one for you. Round the following number to the nearest tens. Now this time, the number is 524. Underline the tens, pause the video, do your work, and then when you're done, go ahead and hit play. Okay, the first step is we underline the place value that we are asked to round to the nearest to. So it's the 2 is in the tens place, underline it. Next step, look at the neighbor. It's a 4. Is 4 bossy or wimpy? You're correct, it's wimpy. So the 2 gets to stay put, and the 4 changes to a 0. So this number ends up being 520. And if we look at a continuum on the number line, 520, 530, so 524 is in between 520 and 530. We look at a number line. This is about halfway, which would be 525. Go down a little bit. 524 is about right here. It is closer to 520. You can draw a number line every time, but it's with bigger numbers it's a little more difficult. So it's easy to remember the rules, but it's very important to understand that you're actually looking at these numbers on the number lines in between the tens, because that's where we were asked to round it to as the nearest tens. Now this number has thousands in it. So let's read the directions first. Round the following number to the nearest tens. So we're looking for the nearest tens again, but we gave you a larger number. 7,328. The 2 is in the tens place. So we underline it. The next step is to look at the neighbor. It's an 8. Is 8 bossy or wimpy? If you said bossy, you're correct. So the underlined number, which is in the tens place, is going to be bossed around. Is going to go up to the next tens, which is 3. And then this 8 has to change to a 0 because we were asked to find the nearest tens. And 30 is tens. You rewrite the number. You must keep all the numbers in front of the tens. 7,300. Now we're going to write the tens that the 28 is closest to. 30. So 7,330 is the nearest tens that this number right here is closest to. Okay, now let's look at a different one. Round the following number to the nearest hundreds. So underline hundreds. And then I want you to write this number, 524. Pause the video. I want you to round it to the nearest hundreds, and when you're ready to check your work, hit play. Okay, the nearest hundreds. We need to go to the hundreds and underline that area. Place value. Now look at the neighbor right next door. You're not going clear over to the ones. The rule is you look at the neighbor right next door because we're looking for the nearest hundreds. So it's a 2. Is it bossy or wimpy? It's wimpy, you're right. So the 5 stays. Every digit behind it has to turn to a 0 because the original number, 524, is in between 500 and 600. We were asked to find the nearest hundreds. This is 500 and 600. And 524 is about right here, and it is closer to 500 than it is to 600. Okay, round the following number to the nearest hundreds. Once again, underline the word so you don't forget where your place value you're going to. And then in the number, we're going to also underline that place value, the hundreds place. Look at the neighbor right next door. In this case, it's the tens. We have 2 tens. Is it bossy or wimpy? If you said wimpy, you're correct. So that 3 is going to stay put. And everything behind it is going to turn to a 0 because we are looking for the nearest hundreds. In this case, 300 is the nearest hundreds, but we got to remember that you have to include the numbers that are in front. You can't forget the thousands. So 7,328 is closer to 7,300 than it is to 7,400. It's only 28 away from the 300, and yet it's a long ways away from the 400. Okay, once again, let's go back and look at wimpy. If the number to the right of the digit that you're asking to round to is a 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4, he's a little scared, so he says, I'll just stay put. But if the number to the right of the digit you're rounding is a 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, he's bossy, and he says, move it. So you've got to move up to the next number. Today, you rounded numbers to the nearest tens and nearest hundreds.